Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by you. If you would like to support the show, head over to berniesbootlegs.com/support. Every contribution will go towards the production costs and overhead of running the podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated and will ensure I can keep making episodes into the future. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Bernie's Bootlegs podcast, where we explore the stories of successful musicians and share their perspectives on being an artist in a digital age. I'm your host, Kenny McCabe, and let's get into the show. In today's episode, we're speaking with drummer and composer Jonathan Barber. We discussed his early musical upbringing, his time at the Jackie McLean Institute, his strategy for joining your dream band, the best mindset for success, working with Pat Metheny, and much more. You can find Jonathan on his website at jonathanbarbermusic.com and also on Instagram at jonathanb_live. And so without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Jonathan Barber. Okay, guys, I'm here with Jonathan Barber. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Man, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really great. Yesterday, I celebrated my birthday.
That's right. I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm feeling really good, and I had an amazing time with my friends and family. So, yeah, all is well.
Yeah, man. Are you 30? Is that correct?
Yeah. Big 3-0.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's been asking you if how it feels to be 30, or like the usual question, you know.
Sure,
do you have a good answer, or does it feel the same?
No, I think it all feels the same. I think, once you kind of look back and just, kind of bring everything together of like what you've done in your 20s, for me, I realized like, wow, like I did so many great things, and I'm still kind of reaching too. So it's actually a good feeling. Some people might feel anxiety or the pressure, but for me, I'm just like what a great 10 years I had, from graduating college to start touring, to the people that I've toured with, and then, all the recent stuff, come out with a record, and, it's all good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Cherish it all. That's what I'll say.
No doubt. And so you are from Hartford, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love for you to give the audience some context about Hartford, because there seems to be such a wide variety of musicians that come out of there, and a lot of really amazing musicians, especially with like the Hart School being there and the Jackie McLean Institute, Josh Evans, and just so many people that you just see their names like everywhere at this point, like playing in so many different contexts. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about growing up in Hartford and how you got started playing music there.
Yeah, so I started playing music in the church. That was kind of like my introduction to the drums, into music. My dad plays the drums, and at the time, my dad's sister and her husband started a church, and so my parents helped them out, and obviously I had to tag along. And so the interesting thing about that experience was, at first, in the beginning stages, they rented out a YMCA and start having service there. And so with that being said, we had to lug in all the equipment. So I just remember being really young, carrying my dad's drums, setting it up for him, and just watching him play. And that was just kind of like, an amazing experience, because I had the hands-on aspect of holding the snare, setting up the snare, putting the cymbals on, the difference between a crash cymbal and a ride cymbal and things like that. And then kind of like, feeling the intensity of gospel music and just that whole culture, if you will. And so as I got older, then I started playing, and then my dad kind of passed the drum chair to me, and so I started playing in church. And then that was a huge training, because it's all by ear, it's all by feel. You're reacting of what the pastor is doing or the worship leader is doing, and so like that was really my foundation. And so kind of fast forward to, I want to say, high school. That's when I got into jazz, and basically it was just kind of like it was the summer of my junior year, and my mom was like, "Man, you need to get a job," So I'm just kind of like, "All right, well, what am I going to do?" And so she actually found in the paper that there was a place that kind of held a summer camp, like a music summer camp. And the crazy thing, well, not crazy thing, the great thing was that you got a stipend. You got $100 a week. So what, at 16, 17, making $100 a week, I'm like, yo, this is going to be a great summer. And so come to find out, it was held at a place called the Artist Collective, and which is a monumental place in the city of Hartford. It's founded by legendary jazz saxophone master Jackie McLean and his wife Dolly McLean. And the interesting thing about that was I came to the Arts Collective like the same year that he passed away. So I'm just like, oh man, I just missed it. But then his son Renee took over, and he's been like a musical father to me, and really been a mentor, and kind of like put me on this path. So with that staple being in the city, it just produced so many musicians, and it gave a kind of a place in an environment, and create an environment for youngsters, I guess, to kind of come in and like learn about the music and just be in this culture, and to know that, this figure, Jackie McLean, is a direct connection to the history and to like the language of this music. So if you think about Jackie McLean, how he basically was a Charlie Parker protege. He knew Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk and Sonny Rollins, and hung out with those guys. And the fact that he came and migrated to Hartford, Connecticut, started this program, and then now we get to study with him and learn from his ways, and basically the tradition of this music and the culture and things like that. It's just kind of like, when I think about that, I'm like, man, I'm not really far removed from the genesis of this music. If you think about classical music and hundreds of years ago, and these people are here and all that stuff. But, if you think about jazz, it's like, man, like we're, not really too far removed, which is a beautiful thing. And so also I would say Jack McLean founded that program. He also founded the Jazz Studies program at the University of Hartford. So, going to the Artist Collective for X amount of years, the thing was, you go to the University of Hartford. Like that's like your rites of passage. Like that's something that you just did. Like if you live in Hartford, you go to Artist Collective, you put in your time, you graduated college, and then boom, you go there. And then it's like, Jackie's band basically taught there, at the time. So you have Professor Nat Reeves, Professor Steve Davis, Professor Eric McPherson, Renee McLean. So it was just kind of like, they kind of knew who you were. So, which was like, good. When you applied to school, you're like, all right, I gotta, I want people to know who I am. And, so then they'll kind of look out for the people that went to Artist Collective. And, the history, like you said, it's huge. You got people like Josh Evans and Desron Douglas and Wayne Scottfree and Jimmy Greene, Chris Allen, Eric McPherson, Abraham Burton, the list goes really on and on. So, and then you got like my generation, myself and Jovan Alexander and Taber Gable, Andrew Renfroe, Matt Dwonszyk. So it's a large army.
Yeah, it's incredible. And one thing that comes up a lot on the podcast is, jazz school and like college and all these things. And a lot of people kind of feel as though a lot of schools don't really prepare you for actually working and getting gigs. But when I look at Hart and the Jackie McLean Institute, like there's so many people that have so many gigs and are playing so much. And so what do you think about that program allowed people to really be so successful?
I think it's kind of like understanding what this music really is. Like it's not really meant for a classroom per se, but I think that we just managed to make it work. When I mean make it work, like make like the academic side or the business side work to an extent. Some people are really against it and some people are for it. But again, I guess like Jackie McLean wasn't like the biggest academia like guy in a sense. You know what I mean? Like I would hear stories. He had like a saxophone class where he had all the saxophone students come together and they would just play, you know, and based off of what he felt is like what he gave, and it was about the music. It wasn't necessarily about, you know, um, like what scales you're playing, but it's like, about connecting the dots from like how you are as a person to, the language of this music to, you know, the rhythm, kind of being in tune to the rhythm, and to the flow of life, So, um, and then also with that being said, I feel like the teachers are like very hands on, and the best way you really gonna learn is like on the bandstand. So I kind of feel like all the teachers knew that, and you know, luckily just didn't shy away from giving students the opportunity to actually play with them, not just play in general. So freshman year, I did gigs with Steve Davis and Nat Reeves, and I learned a lot. It's like, okay, don't do this, do this, you know, you know, learning some tunes and kind of like, playing for a long period of time, playing up tempo songs and knowing how to play with, a saxophone player versus a trombone player versus trumpet versus piano, and, kind of trying to orchestrate, all of that and to, build a good time, building good feel, So it's, I think what makes Heart successful is just the fact that it thrives on just like the real essential of playing this music, and it's about just coming together and it's like and actually playing it. There's nothing. It's not that deep. You know what I mean? It's like actually, having that adrenaline rush on the stage, kind of that first song, and you have to navigate your way through it. So it's a real special place, man, and I'm, really grateful to that I spent my 4 years there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's absolutely no substitute for that kind of mentorship and just practical experience. I mean, sometimes I feel like jazz schools can be like you spend most of your time oftentimes just like stuck in the classroom talking about, diminished scale or harmony or whatever, which is important stuff, but there's no substitute for like actually playing. So I think that is a huge component.
Yeah, and I have to kind of piggyback on what you just said, like mentorship, and that is something that they all kind of grasp and really, lived out. I can say that they all have been mentors to me and really have played that role, and each of, however they view it and however they see it, and I'm talking again, people like Nat Reeves and Steve Davis and Renee McLean, Eric McPherson, Jimmy Greene taught there. I want to say 1 or 2 years of my 4 years. So, they all kind of exemplify that, being a mentor. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you end up graduating, and do you immediately move to New York, or do you spend some time in Hartford still?
Yeah, I spent about, I want to say 2 to 3 years. But the funny thing was, right when I graduated, that's when I instantly started working. So I would say like senior year of college, I started rubbing arms with Wallace Roney. And I think I did like 1 or 2 gigs with him while I was still in school, which was like, really big, because obviously Wallace is like a trumpet giant, in this music, and obviously played with Tony Williams and close to Miles, so his information is really deep. So I did that, and then also I would say what happened. So I graduated. I never forget. I graduated on a Sunday, and then that Monday I went to New York City to kind of like audition for Jimmy Pelt's band, and so like I would go to his shows like my senior year. I was, let me pause right there and like side note, like senior year, like I kind of had like a mission. I was like, okay, these are the people I want to seek out. Like these are the bands I want to join, and like, what I mean, I was like really like going to New York almost every weekend and like really seeing like these people. And Jeremy Pelt was one of them. Listening to that quintet with Dwayne Burno, J.D. Allen, Dana Grissett, and Joe Cleaver, I was like, yo, Like it was just I didn't really hear nothing like it. You know, they were really tight. So I was a huge fan. And so again, after I graduated that Sunday, um, I like kind of auditioned for his band and like kind of rehearsed. I think it was like a gig coming up. I can't really remember, but I made it my business to kind of like be prepared. So um, I would learn all of his music, like all the records, and I would go to his shows and write down the set list. So after, because after, they'll do one song and say, oh, this is, you know, Pandora's Box, and now we're going to play Clairvoyant, and so I'm like, okay, cool. That, cool. And if I didn't know the song, I would like research where that song, that record was from. So I already knew. And so when I went to that rehearsal, he was like, you need music? I said, nope, I know all about heart. And so he's okay, cool, let's play this song, and we'll play this song. He said, let's play this song. And it was just duo. So, and so he really was like, okay, he really knows the music. He's not really banking on the bass player to make the hits or the piano player. And so from right then and there, I started touring with him. And that was my master's program. That was like my doctorate program. It wasn't Juilliard or Berkeley or New School. I think those are good programs, but they don't compare to going on tour and learning from a Dwayne Burno, or learning from a J.D. Allen or a Jeremy Pelt or a Danny Grissett, being 20 years old, like it that don't compare, you know what I mean? So that was huge for me. And yeah, that happened for a while. I'm going to say like 3 years or something like that. And then I started playing with JD's band. And then I moved to New York. So I want to say I moved to New York around 2015. But yeah, because 2020 will be 5 years of me actually living in the city.
Right on, yeah. And just going back to the fact that you were so well prepared, or you kind of had a goal, like, okay, I want to play in these people's bands, so I'm going to learn all of their tunes. I feel like not that many people really do that anymore.
Yeah. It's a shame. I think that's the way of like getting a gig. Is that you have to put in the work, and you have to. A few things. You have to make your like. You have to be trusted, and it don't matter what instrument it is. Like for someone to hire you, is trust. They're putting in trust that not only the music, but that you can deliver the music a certain way, and also make yourself valuable. Make yourself like, okay, if this person is studious about my music, moving forward, I know that this person will, be studious about the new music or whatever other project that that person may create, and I think that kind of was something that kind of gave me longevity of playing in Pelt's band, because after that quintet, he kind of stopped doing that, and he did an electric thing, and then he kind of did like a quartet thing. And then I did some tours with him when he used European musicians, but he held on to me. And then he did another quintet with percussion, and I did that. So, you know what I mean? And I kind of felt like he knew I was serious about the music, and I'd be well prepared. And yeah, I think that's kind of one way of how you get a gig. You have to show the person that you know the music, and that you understand the music of how that music is, that should be played and delivered. And then and then you find your way of like, okay, I know I have the tools, and I have the map. Now I can add my color, and I can put my spirit into it, and so that makes it really fresh.
Yeah, I wish more people would do that. I think part of the problem might be that there aren't really that many bands anymore. I mean, everyone kind of
Right.
just like intermingles like so much, and just like it has a different configuration every time, that there aren't really that many bands where it's the same personnel all the time. And if there are, that they maybe last like a year or a couple years. But yeah, that's an awesome story though. Like I think more people should do that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I like the thing is, like I do that with every artist, you know what I mean? So just kind of like and matter of fact, I'll say this, like this new endeavor. Actually, next week I'm getting ready to go on tour with Pat Metheny. And he was another guy, you know, that was on like my list of just like, you know, people that I wouldn't play with in my lifetime, you know. And the moment I did meet him and I like played duo with him, like from that point on, like that was like my doctorate degree, like my independent study, where I mean, he has a huge catalog, and I went through numerous of records, studying them, and not just saying, okay, like I know the melody, I know the form, that's it, but it's kind of like knowing the shape of the song, the rise and fall of the song, and knowing like, okay, like, you know, okay, this drummer is like he's using this drummer and this drummer. Like, why is he using this drummer? Like, what are they doing? You know, what is the common ground that these drummers are delivering? And then, you know, when I'll talk to him, I'll get to have more insight of his thing. And so, okay, so then how can I incorporate that into my playing and not just, you know, do it based off of like me reading out of a book? You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, you become a researcher, you know what I mean? And like that was something huge for me. And that was years. You know, that wasn't just like over the summer kind of thing. Like it was a good 2-3 years of me just, you know, studying his music, practicing his music, you know, kind of going through all the drummers that play with him. And so now, again, I feel really prepared and confident that I can deliver it in such a way where it's familiar to him, but then it's also progressive in the sense of like it's fresh, it's new, it's, you know, it's me.
Yeah, man. A lot of people will hear this and they'll be like, "Man, like I would love to play with Pat Metheny or anyone like that." And
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of people might feel like that doing that or getting to tour or play with a person like that is more or less impossible. But obviously, I'm sure that you don't feel that way. So maybe you can speak to, you know, what you feel is attainable with a sufficient amount of hard work.
Yeah, you know, like I feel like I'm about to like turn into Kevin Garnett, you know, when he won the championship, and he's like, anything is possible, you know what I mean? But I really believe that, man. And matter of fact, let me give you like just like the whole thing real quick. So when I was in high school, I you know, I got into jazz, right? So when I got back to that senior year, when I got back to my high school, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a jazz musician. I'm going to jazz school, and so I entered into the jazz band, you know, which was like an honors program, basically, like the honors credit. And so the first song that they played was "Minuano" by Pat Metheny, right? And I was like, what is that? You know, like, I mean, come from the church and then like kind of get into jazz a little bit. Like for one, I was intimidated that it was like 6 pages long, and I didn't know how to read, so I was like, wow, they must be smart because they can read 6 pages of music, you know. And so, and then like the melody, and then all these different sections, and then my friend to this day, Uni Mojica, was like, it's Minuano about Pat Metheny, and I was like, okay, what's Minuano and what's Pat Metheny, like, you know what I mean? And I just put it together, and that was kind of like my first introduction. Then in college, I did the Pat Metheny camp, which was like a guitar camp, and it was like all these guitar players, and they needed like 2 drummers and 2 bass players for like ensembles just to like play with them as they break off into groups. And so like it might have been like 5 days or maybe a week, but I want to say 5 days where I would like watch Pat do a master class, and then him, Chris McBride, and Antonio Sanchez would do like a concert after. And you know, and then I was blown away because I was like, wow, like this guy is just like huge, and like, and it's funny because I remember I did say to myself like, this is great, but I feel so far removed from it because it's like that is so beyond me. Like, wow, like he's reached this level, and like I'm just like, you know, the drummer for ensemble of like 30 guitar players, you know. And I don't really think I even met him. Like, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like he'll come on stage, play, and bounce. You know. Years later, like maybe 4 or 5 years later, I get email from him like, "Hey man, like I've heard you. I don't know if he heard me. I mean, yeah, he must have heard me, but like I'm not sure how or where." And he's like, "Man, like I dig what you're doing. Like let's get together." And that point led to now. From that point, I think it was like what 2016, 20 might be 2014, 2016. Yeah, 2016. That's when I first connected with him. And then 2019 of March, that's when I did my first tour. So I say all that to say, it's kind of like, man, like, like it's like a seed. You put like a small seed into the ground, and then over time, it grows root, and then it grows, and then it bears fruit. So I always tell people, it's just like, if you have a dream and goal, you gotta not just do the work, but you have to put out the effort. It's not so much of the result. I think we get caught up in the result of, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, or I'm not signed, or I don't have this endorsement, or blah 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 blah, or whatever. But it's just like, I feel like our breakthrough comes in our effort. So the whole time, I was, learning his music and trying to go to his shows and emailing, and you know what I mean. So it's just like, you got to put forth the effort, and just like how we just talked about, a lot of students, how they approach gigs is like really different now. That's kind of part of it. So I think, yeah, that it's something to be said as far as like little steps of this interaction that I had with Pat Metheny. It kind of led to this, and I think you kind of have to kind of give yourself some time too. And also, I would say, not only does it take time, but you have to be patient. So I mean, it took me 3 years for me to be hired by him. Some people might have been like, "Oh man, that's too long," or they might have would have given up and just stopped trying to communicate. But it really takes time, and also like you have to give yourself time to grow and to digest the process as well. So like I'm glad I spent 3 years, excuse me, of like learning his music and figuring things out and preparing myself, because now since I'm here, I have a way bigger understanding of it. So patience, man, and timing, and when it's your time, boom.
Yeah, man. And something that gets said a lot is just learn to love the process. Maybe you can give us your thoughts about that, because it's not easy. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and every day, is not going to be a perfect day. A lot of the, work that's going to be involved is gonna kind of suck a little bit. Like maybe you wake
Yeah,
up and you don't want to like shed Pat Metheny tunes, but you do it
right.
anyway. So maybe you can speak to learning to love the process.
Yeah, you kind of have to um, like love it all, like consider it all joy, as they say. Like there's some things that's gonna be like really beneficial for you, and there's some things that might seem like a setback, or if it doesn't go your way, like you know sometimes like a door being closed is a good thing, because it's like if you have every door open, then it's like, okay, well, which door are you gonna go through? But then when you get this door closed, and it seems that you can like really navigate your way better. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of like, you know, like getting in shape isn't like the best feeling. Some stuff, it kind of, requires some strenuous effort, and like some pain or some discomfort. But I think that's life, man. It's like learning how uh, to take an uncomfortable situation and like really embrace it. You know what I mean? And I think once you get to that end of your process, you'll realize like how much it all benefited you. You know what I mean? So it is kind of like the times where you're like, okay, I don't have any gigs and this sucks, whatever. But I mean, there's many other things that you can do. Obviously, you can, go to shows and get inspired that way. You can write music, you can practice, or you can just do absolutely nothing, and kind of just like be to yourself and kind of like let your ears ring out, and you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like if you're listening to music so much, sometimes you need a break. It's like if you're lifting weights every day, like there's days where you just need a break. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like finding that balance, and not just kind of overwhelming yourself in one area. It's kind of like, man, some like for me, like I like doing nothing. Like I love playing music, I love hanging out, I love going to the movies, I love the shop, whatever. But like also like in that list, I like just sitting around doing nothing because it kind of just lets me breathe, And so like within that process, you kind of have to let yourself breathe and give yourself time. And I mean, we live in a culture and society where things happen in like now, like, if you want to look up some music, boom, you can do it now. Like if you can download it right now and you can, check this thing out. Like everything is so instantaneous where I think the process of letting something digest and take its course is really limited, And with music, like some stuff is going to take some time for you to really figure it out. Like you don't just get your feel overnight. You don't just get the language overnight. It's a process, that you just have to kind of like be committed to. So with embracing the process comes commitment.
Yeah, and I also always find that after I take a break, I actually, it kind of re-energizes me. Like kind of like my love for music or whatever, it gets kind of renewed, honestly. So I come back to it like even more energized to be involved in it.
You feel fresh,
Yeah, man, exactly. And so I'd love to fast forward a little bit. So we talked a lot about, other people's music, but you actually released your own record last year, which was I'm sure was super fun. Like I'm sure you're super, proud of it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the record, what the concept is and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess Vision Ahead. Where can I begin? Myself, Andrew Renfroe, Taber Gable, met Dwonszyk. We all went to the Jackie McLean Institute together, the University of Hartford, for our undergrad. And so we kind of built that bond and that brotherhood within music. And we all actually moved to New York together. And at one point, me, Taber, and Andrew lived together at one point. And so like I had that band, and it was kind of like a Jonathan Barber Quintet, whatever. And I was like, okay, I want to kind of build an identity, build a brand. And actually, interesting enough, 2016 November, I lost my brother unexpectedly, and so that experience kind of took me away from the scene a little bit. And so while I was in Virginia, where he lived with his family, it just seemed like just the words "vision ahead" just came to me, and I was like, that's it, like. That's kind of like what I held on to that year of just carrying on. And also, like, I think that's going to be the name of my band. And basically, Vision Ahead is just like keeping your vision in front of you and don't lose sight of your vision. Many times it's like when we're kids, we have all these dreams and like, well, we want to be this. And as we get older and kind of, perception and society and people, and critics, we kind of steer away from it. We go, okay, well, maybe I should do this. It's like, no, if you set your mind to that, you stick to it and you be committed to that. And and don't lose sight of that. So that's kind of what it was. And also musically, like I know that I stand on the shoulders of like a Miles Davis, Jackie McLean, Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane. And it's kind of like just moving forward, and carrying on. Not necessarily moving on, but just like, just carrying on the torch and carrying on the idea and the creativity of, using your voice in a creative way and get to affect the culture and affect change, in this day and time, so that kind of what Vision Ahead kind of means. And then once I was in New York, I was okay. I felt like I kind of want like a fifth member, like in the band, like just another sound. And I've been hearing about Godwin, and I wanted to play with him. And he's also from Connecticut, so I was like, oh snap! Like this is like a Connecticut-based band, And so we did gigs together, and that first gig is like I feel like he just took the band to another level, with what the quartet, what we already created. And I kind of felt like, okay, like that was it. That's Vision Ahead. And 2017, I started writing a lot. and that's when I felt like we were ready for a record. I recorded the record 2018. That's when I released the record independently, and just been on our way of touring and traveling and just really be able to kind of share the world, like my sound and my vision, musically. So it's really cool, man. I love those guys, and I love my band, and I'm just so happy and excited for the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, man. So you actually have another record, your second one, coming out hopefully, spring next year. Is that safe to say?
Yes. Yeah. I would say May of 2020. The sophomore record is going to be released, and this one is definitely, I'll say, more mature in a sense. Not to say that the first one isn't, but I think it's just definitely a continuation of where we're going. And those guys played great, and I'm happy that I wrote all the music. Actually, the bassist Matt wrote a song for the band, but other than that, I wrote all the music. So I'm starting to kind of be more comfortable and kind of really flow into this composer hat, of writing music for the band and kind of having this vision of our sound and kind of featuring everyone. So it's really cool, man.
Yeah. Do you have a title yet, or is that secret?
Yeah, I have ideas, but I'm not too sure. So I think you might have to wait, or actually I gotta really figure it out. But soon you'll know.
Sounds good, man. And final question. There's a lot of younger musicians and folks along those lines that watch the show, and they might see the kind of thing you're doing. You're playing with Pat Metheny. You play with a lot of different people in a lot of different contexts, making records, living in New York. A lot of people will look at that and they'll be like, "Hey, that seems like something that I would want to do." What would be your biggest advice to them?
You got to set goals, and kind of give yourself reminders of these goals. It's like, don't just like write down the goals and then just like forget about it. You know what I mean? Like kind of review them and figure out how to achieve those goals. And through that process, it's always subjected to change. It might not work out the way you wanted to work out, but at least it will give yourself an idea on how to work towards them. You know what I mean? So, set goals, like be patient, be a good person, like that sounds really basic, but, if you're not a good person, then it's just like, you won't get any recommendations of going on tour or on the studio session. Be committed, and also be committed to yourself, and I think that's first and foremost. It's like, of course, be committed to the music and be committed to, if it's the scene or whatever it is, but you have to be committed to yourself. Like you have to be your biggest fan, even when, you may not feel like you've done good or, this could have been better, but you really have to be committed to yourself and invest in yourself, not just financially, but also spiritually as well. So, and emotionally and also physically as well. Take care of yourself. That's really important too, because, New York has been at a fast pace for many years and it's not slowing down, and a lot of times we want to hit the ground running, but we can really burn ourselves out. So, pace yourself and also just, again, enjoy the process. It's a beautiful thing. And at the end of the day, like, with hard work, it's very rewarding. It's just kind of like, you would look back and be like, wow, like I remember, I was here and now I'm here, and that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, man. Jonathan, where's the best place for people to find you?
You can find me on my website, www.jonathanbarbermusic.com. or you can find me on Instagram, Jonathan, the letter B, _LIVE.
Right on, man. Hey, this was awesome. I really enjoyed this one. I'm grateful for your time, and I think the viewers are really going to dig this one. We touched on so many important topics, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
My pleasure, man. Stay on the line for 1 second. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be listening to this. And if you enjoyed the podcast, consider giving it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. For more episodes, please visit BerniesBootlegs.com. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.